Hello, 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 everybody. Happy marvelous Monday. How are you today? Listen, I am well. I'm super excited that you are joining me today. I have some information and I must share this. I love you all so much. I always bring you fresh information. It's a new topic every week. Listen, I enjoy what I do. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Carissa Span, the landlord and tenant coach. And today I'm going to be talking about a new bill that's been introduced to Congress and how that impacts landlords as well as tenants throughout the United States. So if you are a landlord or if you know someone who is, please tell them to tune in right now because I'm going to be sharing some paramount information. If you have questions, comments, remarks, or observations, go ahead, show me some love in the comment section. Put all your questions, your comments in the chat box. I will respond to them accordingly. And I promise that my only goal today is to share information and to make sure that it's clear and understandable. So, for those of you who have been following me, you already know that one of the things that I always share is laws are going to be different in, I guess, the different jurisdictions depending on where the rental property is located, right? Well, this bill that has been introduced in Congress, it could impact how landlords conduct business. And so I'm going to really just break that down and just go over what that could mean for landlords as well as tenants who are participating in the Housing Choice Voucher Program, also known as or formerly known as Section 8. Yeah, I know that this is something that's near and dear to my heart. I always talk about rental property, rental communities. I share information for landlords as well as tenants. Well, listen, there is so much going on, but I definitely wanted to share this information because I know that some people are not knowledgeable, some people are not aware, and some people have no idea of the impact that this bill could potentially make. And so I'm going to get into that. But before I do, let me acknowledge you if you are showing up for the first time today, whether you are on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. I just wanted to say thank you so much and welcome. Hello, Kenya. Happy Monday, beautiful. I love it when my students are tuned in, my students are chiming in. Kenya, listen, we're going to have this conversation in class this week. So I want you to just take some really good notes and some nuggets. So again, y'all show me some love in the comments section today. I promise I will not hold you long, but I am going to hold you long enough to share this information because I believe that somebody needs to know this information. All right. So as I've shared, Congress has introduced a bill that would make accepting the housing choice voucher a permanent thing. So, what is a housing choice voucher? What is it about? Why is it important to you? Why is it important to landlords or tenants? Listen, if you're not a renter, if you are not a landlord, maybe you know someone who is. Okay, and so the housing choice voucher program, many people know it as Section 8. Well, it was created in 1974. All right. And it is essentially a housing assistance program. It's a subsidy, whereas the government will help to pay a tenant's rent. Either it could be a portion, it could be all of it, but usually, if a tenant has to pay rent in one of these voucher programs, on average, they can anticipate on paying somewhere around the range of 30% of their income. So let me just break it down. So let's say there's a family, doesn't matter what their income source is. It could be from TANF, welfare, it could be from fixed income like Social Security, retirement. Maybe they have a part-time job, or maybe it's just a job that's not really paying a lot. All right, so let's just say that the household's income is $1,000 a month, right? So just depending on how many people live in that household, that will determine any allowances, any deductions, that the government will say, okay, well, if you have a child, we'll give you a credit. We'll give you a utility allowance if you have to pay utilities. So maybe the family has two kids and maybe they have to pay gas, electric, and water, right? So the starting basis for their income. 30% of $1,000 is how much? Put that in the chat box for me. So let me just round it off to say $300, right? That's not the exact number, but we'll just go with 300. Okay, so 300 is 30% of that family's income, right? And if they have children, if they are disabled, or if they are seniors, they'll get deductions off of that amount, which would reduce the amount that they pay for rent. Okay, and so that's just the skinny of it of how the program works. So there are other factors that come into play, but I just want to keep it simple for you today, just to give you a clear idea of what it could look like. All right, so um, the family's income could be, like I said, $1,000, and 30% of that, we rounded that to like 300, right? Meaning that off of $1,000, they could expect to pay maybe 300 for rent. Well, if they have kids, there are going to be more deductions, which would reduce the amount that they pay each month. And the government will subsidize the rest. So let's say they pay $200 a month, right? And in many cases, it could be less than that. It could be actually zero. And yes, some people do pay zero for rent, and the government subsidize the rest. The government will pay the rest of the rent to that particular landlord or owner who is renting to them. All right. So that's just the background. All right. But now here's the thing. When it comes to the Section 8 program, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, so I may say the terms, you may hear me say Section 8, you may hear me say Housing Choice Voucher Program, because I recognize that a lot of people understand the program as Section 8. All right. So let's say someone is new, they are just getting a voucher for the very first time. Okay, they'll go into the office of usually the housing authority. They'll get the voucher, they will get a briefing or an orientation which explains how the program works, um, how they can go out looking for rental property. The thing that I do love and appreciate about the Housing Choice Voucher Program is that it does not um, the program doesn't define where a tenant can live, which is why it is a choice, housing choice. They get to choose where they live as long as the rent is um, affordable, as long as the rent is approved according to the housing authority standard. So there must be an approved rent. So let me just also put that out there. So for instance, if you have a family, let's say this family has a 2-bedroom voucher, right? And they're trying to rent in a community, whereas their 2-bedroom voucher won't necessarily cover the rents for that particular neighborhood. That will limit what the family could rent. But it's not to say that they can't rent in that community. As long as they find something that's affordable, that's what matters. All right, so you have a family, they're getting the voucher for the very first time. They have received a briefing, an orientation explaining the process. So now they can go out into the community, they can find a place to call home. Doesn't matter if it's an apartment, a house, a single family house, a townhouse, a condo. Doesn't really matter as long as the rent is approved. Okay. So here's what has been happening in a lot of places throughout the United States. Landlords have been able to say, I don't accept tenants who are participating in the Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program. Well, in other jurisdictions where the laws are in place to protect income, right? Landlords are prohibited from saying that they don't accept the Section 8 voucher program participants. Um, so, with this new bill that was introduced to Congress on June the 23rd of this year, if this bill, if it passes, right, and it becomes an actual bill, if it becomes the law, that would mean that there could be no landlord anywhere in the United States, few exceptions, but I'm not going to get into that today. Um, Landlords will not be able to say they do not accept the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher participant. They cannot say they do not participate in the program. All right, so once this bill becomes law, it would make it illegal for landlords to tell tenants that. And I know that some people are like, Carissa, people are already telling me that. I have heard from renters where they're looking for housing, they're looking for rental properties to live in, and people are telling them that they don't accept the voucher program. And I've been telling them that if a landlord, a housing provider, a housing professional, if someone is telling tenants that they don't participate in the program, they don't accept the program, but if it's in a jurisdiction where they must accept it, it's against the law to say that they don't flat out do it. Now, I did indicate that there are exceptions, right? That's a different segment, that's a different live, not for today. All right. But I want people to understand what this means if this bill is passed and if it becomes law. Well, like I said, remember, I told you that in certain jurisdictions, it's already mandatory, it's already a law in certain areas that landlords cannot discriminate, right? They can't say they don't accept it. That is discrimination. And I have had colleagues and clients of mine over the years, they emphatically stated, Carissa, I don't care what happens, I will never accept tenants who are participating in the Section 8 program. I've had people who felt so strongly about it. I am not here to judge anybody. Whatever they decide is on them. I am only telling you what the law says that you must and must not do. All right. So, what does that mean for tenants? That means you have more protection if you are a participant in the voucher program. That gives you more options when you're out in the community, when you're out looking for a place to call home, whether it's for you or your family, or maybe you know someone, a friend, a family, a loved one, right? This provides a lot of protection for tenants. One of the things that a lot of rental communities are concerned about is affordable rent. But I promise you that from one state to the next, one city to the next, from one jurisdiction to the next, affordable housing, it can sound so different. It can look so different, right? Because who defines what is affordable? And I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of that because it really just depends on the economy. There are a lot of factors that are involved when determining what affordable housing is and what affordable housing look like. So I'm going to take some questions because I know that some people are really scratching their heads in terms of what this means. Hello, Kimberly. Thank you so much for tuning in from South Carolina. Charleston, South Carolina is in the building. Hey, Pete, thank you so much for tuning in. You said, what did you say about Section 8? You just got here. Well, Pete, I'm glad that you're here. So, Congress has introduced a bill making it mandatory for owners to accept participants who have a Section 8 housing choice voucher. It will now, if this law is passed, if it becomes law rather, landlords cannot say, Pete, they don't accept tenants in the Section 8 program. So that's gonna make a big difference in a lot of places and in a lot of areas, because some landlords are now starting to understand the program a little bit better. And a lot of people who don't understand it, and a lot of people who choose not to accept it or who choose not to accept Section 8 tenants are going to find themselves in a world of trouble. And so I just wanted to share this information because I know that I have a lot of viewers who are tuned in. A lot of you are landlords, you're housing professionals, but then I also have a lot of tenants who are watching. And so if you're in an area as a tenant and you're watching, and you have a landlord or you have a place that maybe you've applied to rent to, and then maybe the landlord said, well, we would rent to you, but we don't accept Section 8. Understand that if that's what's been said to you before, and if this bill passes and becomes the law, then that landlord can get into a lot of trouble if they are saying that. So here's the thing I want people to know. All right. When it comes to HUD, Housing and Urban Development, all right, that's a federal government agency. There are testers. HUD has testers. And what are testers? I'm so glad that you asked me. Testers are out in the community. They are making sure that landlords are not discriminating against people based off of income. Maybe they have low to moderate income. That's what this housing program is all about. Housing choice vouchers is to assist families and people who are in need. And so, certainly, if the government is putting money and funding in place to help families, obviously, they don't want people turned down because they are receiving this sort of assistance. Um, Kenya, you said, what about income? I am so glad that you asked that question. So, a voucher, a participant in the voucher program, rather, um, the voucher, it kind of serves as income. And so that's why if this passes, this will actually uh, be part of the Fair Housing Act of 1968, Kenya. So we cover fair housing laws in our class, right? And so this will amend the Fair Housing Act, and so it will make it a requirement. So a voucher is considered income. The voucher is in lieu of money that a family would pay. It offsets the income that the family doesn't have, right? And so this is covered. This is definitely covered. So thank you so much for that question. Um, so again, this is going to provide a lot of protection for tenants throughout the United States. Hey, Fels, happy Monday. You said, don't they still have to have the security deposit? Absolutely. So tenants are required, if it is your requirement as a landlord. Let me just say this because not all landlords are asking tenants to pay a security deposit. I believe they should. In my business practice, I ask for a security deposit because it provides financial protection in the event that rent is unpaid, there's damage or cleaning that needs to take place once the tenant moves out. But that's another segment as well. But landlords can still require tenants to pay a security deposit. Here's what I'm suggesting landlords to do. Fels, I know that you are experienced, you are an experienced real estate investor, and that you've been doing well over the years, but there are some newbies, people who are not so knowledgeable about the process. So with the security deposit, I am strongly recommending that you find out what the law says you can collect in the jurisdiction that your rental property is in. Here's why I say that, and here's a perfect example. Well, in the District of Columbia, a landlord can only accept up to 1 month rent for the security deposit. Well, in the state of Maryland, landlords can accept up to 2 times the rent amount for the security deposit. So you have to know what the law says that you can and cannot do. So I've managed property over the years in multiple jurisdictions and states. And so from one area to the next, it was imperative for me to understand what I could and could not do, because what I can do in DC, I can't do in South Carolina. What I can do in South Carolina, I definitely cannot do in New York or Georgia or Florida. So the laws are sometimes a lot different. They may be similar. All right. So please understand that. Kenya, let me go to your question. You said, and with the inflation, will that determine rent? That's a good question. And so usually, Kenya, landlords who are experienced, landlords or property managers who have been in the industry, they'll usually do, Kenya, what you're going to do in your market survey project. They would assess the market and see what the rents are in that particular jurisdiction or area. Well, but then there are some landlords who don't know to do that, and they just charge whatever they want to charge for rent. So, but I would strongly recommend to conduct a market analysis, to do a market survey to find out what are the rents in that particular area. And so if the rents are increasing, then obviously as a business owner, you want to keep pace with the market. Now, I strongly use tools to determine whether or not the rents are in compliance, if it's affordable, if it's average, if it's above average. And there are some tools that people use. Sometimes, Kenya, landlords will use like a real estate agent. They'll use a tool. One of the things that I previously used in the past was Rental Meter. And that's a free website where landlords, they can go on, they can put in an address. and that website will tell them how much the going rents are in that particular area. And there are other websites that people use, but with inflation, that could determine how much the rents are. So now, remember when I started out, I started talking about how landlords will not be able to discriminate, right? But here's the thing: in some areas, um, the voucher program may not be able to keep the pace with the market rent. So landlords are not required to lower their rent if that's what their rents are. So for instance, let me just take an apartment building in New York City, right? So the rent is, let's say, 4,000 a month, right? And a voucher participant comes into the office. They want to submit an application so that they can live there. Well, the rents for all of those apartments are 4,000. But let's just say that the voucher program will only cover up to 3,000. That landlord is not required to lower the rent as long as that's what the rent is for all of their units in that particular building. And so, like I said, there are some exceptions, but as it stands now, um, some landlords have been getting away with saying that they don't participate. And it always makes me cringe, Kenya, when I hear people say that, a landlord has discriminated against them, because what a lot of people don't know is that landlords could be sued for discriminating. I shared a story how um, a landlord, it was an older couple. They didn't even rent to these people, right? They had never signed a lease agreement with the people, but obviously the prospect or the applicant knew the law better than the owners. And so something happened. The owners of the rental property discriminated. The prospect who was trying to rent the place, they had submitted an application, right? And they sued that owner because there was some sort of something that happened. And this happens all the time. So I want people to understand that this is a serious matter. I told you that there are testers, all right? HUD has testers, other entities and organizations, they have testers. They want to make sure that people are not being scammed. They want to make sure that people are being treated fairly. They want to make sure that tenants are being treated properly. And so please know what the law says. Please follow this bill. Like I said, it was introduced. It was introduced in Congress on June the 23rd. All right. Making it possibly mandated, mandatory, federally um, punishable by law if a landlord flat out denies or refuses to rent to someone because they're participating in the Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program. So I want to share this information because I know that sharing is caring. There are a lot of people who don't know this information. And so I thank you for showing up to get this information. Please share it with someone who you know is a landlord or a tenant. If you have questions, I'm always here. I'm always available. This is what I do each and every Monday at 7:30 p.m. I share information because I recognize there are a lot of people that need this information. And I promise you that showing up, sparing a few moments of your time to get some information could possibly save you thousands of dollars, because what you don't know can and or will hurt you as a landlord. And so I obviously want tenants as well as landlords to be knowledgeable, right? Because I just believe that an educated rental community, it works better when we work together. All right, so that's all I wanted to share today. And I hope that this will stick. I hope that you'll share this with somebody. And again, if you have questions, I'm here each and every Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, and I am on LinkedIn. All right, so let me come to your question. Hey, Sandy, thank you so much for tuning in today, beautiful. You said, but the bill is in the House of Representatives, has only been introduced, not passed, right? Absolutely. It's been introduced. It hasn't been passed. So we want to make sure that we are following to see what the results are going to be. It still has to pass the Senate as well. This is true. And that's why I'm having this conversation, because I want people's antennas to go up like, okay, Carissa shared this information. Let's stay on the lookout. So it hasn't changed yet. It's not the law yet. It's been introduced. But if it passes, that would mean a world of a whole lot of differences for a lot of people. Great question. Thank you so much for that, Sandy. All right, so I will continue to follow this, see where it goes, see if it passes. I'm certainly going to share more information about it as I get updates, but I want you to know firsthand um, what could happen and how things could change for landlords. And if you're currently in the area where you are prohibited from flat out refusing voucher programs, tell your friends, your family in other states and jurisdictions that they could be impacted by it as well. All right, so I'll take, if you have any more questions, I'll take your questions. Any comments that you have, put it in the comment section. Please make sure that you are following me on social media. Y'all go to my YouTube channel and smash that subscribe button so that you'll be the first to know when I'm live and when I am online. And obviously, I enjoy what I do. And so, if there's a subject matter that you would like for me to discuss or cover in the upcoming weeks or the months, please send me an email. Let me know, and I will cover it as long as it's landlord and tenant related. All right. So, let me share my email address. You can always email me when I am not online. I hope that you all having a great summer. Please be safe. Please, 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 please be safe. Um, I saw on the news earlier that COVID, there's another spike in COVID. There's another pandemic coming. Don't want to scare anybody, but I just want to say continue to be safe, right? Don't take anything or anybody for granted. Please protect yourself. Please protect everybody that's around you. All right, so this is my email address. It's carissaspan@gmail.com. carissaspan@gmail.com. So if you have questions, comments, remarks, or observations, if I'm not online, please feel free to email me. And I look forward to you joining me next Monday right here at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to say bye for now.